Well, good morning, everybody. Let's talk about Mateo Joseph. With 2 goals and 3 assists to his name this season, they are not standout numbers, but as the January transfer window heats up, should Mateo Joseph be sent out on loan? It's a conversation I know a lot of you guys are having, and I wanted to balance the argument a little bit today because everyone thinks that I've got a pro-Joseph agenda, of which I don't think he is. I think he's just a 21-year-old who I'm backing to do well. I think at the minute there's maybe a few Leeds fans who just want him to fail, which I find extremely bizarre with a 21-year-old. Normally, Leeds fans are very good at backing their own, backing their young as well when it comes to players who have been in that development squad. So I am finding that a little bit challenging to deal with at the minute. But let's be honest, his performance overview right now, I don't think it's great in terms of numbers. I think we can all identify that. I can admit that 100%. I think what he needs is consistent minutes, and I keep saying this throughout the season, so I can understand the argument for a loan 100%, because he would get consistent minutes. You'd need to find a team with a style of play who suits Joseph. Right now, we don't have that. Right now, in my opinion, we don't have that, and I think we struggled to cultivate that as soon as Rutter left. I think Rutter aided Mateo Joseph massively in pre-season, and I think you saw that with a lot of the build-up and a lot of the finishes that came from Joseph. So, yeah, I think the players that are getting ahead of him in the pecking order right now, it's Joel Peru. I think I understand that. I'm not fully convinced the manager is convinced on Peru, even though Peru was his signing. So I know Farke does back his signing, Solomon, etc. So, yeah, I understand it from that perspective. I understand that also Joel Peru's got 10 goals, let's be honest, the same amount of goals as Latte Lath, who we've been discussing. But what I wanted to do in particular, everybody, is to look at every other team's sort of second striker right now. Leeds have scored the most goals in the division by 6, I think. Borough in second. I think Leeds have scored, 48 goals, which is staggering, really. And no team really has the amount of goals that we have scored in their lineup. You look at the attacking two as well for most teams. Zian Fleming, the drop-off is Jay Rodriguez, who I think is on 2 goals. Probably the best competition is maybe Tyrese Campbell and Kiefer Moore. I think Tyrese is on 6, Kiefer is on 5 goals. So I think that's pretty reasonable competition. But you go further down the pecking order, Sunderland, if you take Isidore out there, Mayenda is probably their second striker, I would say right now. But he's not an out-and-out striker at all. I think he's on 2 goals as well. And then you go further down the pecking order, Borough have Latte Lath, Finn Azaz, obviously, who's in central attacking midfield. But the drop-off from Latte Lath is no one here. So the reason I'm mentioning that, everybody, is because when you look at it, there's not actually a second striker throughout any of the teams who are competing who is very competitive to that first striker, if that makes any sense. The drop-off is naturally quite significant. So for me, the yin and the yang at this moment in time is I'm seeing a lot of people saying, well, if we lose Peru, then Joseph is going to be coming in, and then what? We're in big trouble. Well, I actually think that the consistent minutes with Firpo wide left and Bogle wide right, if we're getting those consistent minutes, we saw Schmidt's performance last night as well, we can tell that those wing-backs are very adept at overlaps and cutbacks, and if we can get that continuity from Firpo and Bogle, injury-wise and performance-wise, till the end of the season, you've naturally got Leeds who are going to be hitting the byline a lot, and Joseph who's going to be hitting the near post a lot. I think the average would suggest that if he's getting consistent minutes, and those two are playing in particular, that would fit Leeds United a lot more, So sometimes it's not necessarily about the system. That would fit Joseph a lot more, I should say. But it's not necessarily about the system. It's about the personnel who are playing in the system that aids a striker like Mateo Joseph. So I think that is something we have to take into consideration. I do think the argument has to be balanced a little bit, everybody. I think the problem is right now there is a Joseph out and a Joseph in brigade right now, and I think that's what's causing a split in the fan base. But I don't think that drop-off would actually be that significant. The reason why is because you're still getting other players in our side getting goals. I understand Peru has got 10 goals this season, but you've got Brendan Harrison on 7. You've got Ramazani back into the side now on 4 goals. You've got Dan James on 6 goals. You've got William Yonto on 5 goals. So Leeds United's spread of goals is actually really good across that front line. And we can use rotation as well. So I think Peru being out of this side, worst case scenario, I don't think it will be bad with a fully fit Joseph, with the right players in and around Joseph, And I think that is probably the conversation that we have to have right now. But I think the drop-off to a second striker is, I actually think Leeds have got quite a healthy balance there from my personal perspective. I think the development opportunities as well, I think keeping him for this season with, rotation with Joel Peru will naturally aid his development. I remember, a couple of years ago when Rutter came in for 40 million quid, the context was a little bit different, but he was a young lad. He came in and some of the stuff that he was getting online, he's a donkey, he's not good enough, and he was, obviously he's a young player. And I made sort of a bit of a thing with myself to really back Rutter through that period, because he couldn't help it. He couldn't help the minutes he was getting. He couldn't help the system he was in, the change of management and the players in and around him. And I thought at some stage he's going to come good. He's got that technical ability to come good. And I do see that with Joseph. It's just a personal preference. I see him as coming good. Okay, that's what I do. I think people sometimes forget it's his first season. And right at the beginning of the season, pre-season, Farke was picking him as the starting striker. He's picking him, So he evidently sees something there. There's not been any rumours of Joseph leaving throughout this winter window. In the summer, there was loads of options for loan, Farke and Leeds United, and Joseph wanted to stay. So, it's not just Mateo Joseph. A lot of people are saying, get rid of him, let him go. But the manager doesn't want him to go, quite evidently. Leeds don't want him to go, quite evidently. And I think those two options up front, you can almost have Joseph as that fall guy for Peru, because if Joseph came in, it'd benefit him if Peru was injured anyway, because it's consistency, which he's not getting right now. He's not getting 90 after 90 after 90 after 90, even if it's not working for him. And I think that consistency would breathe an element of success, because I think he's got the technical ability and the striking potency to be able to deliver like he was kind of doing in pre-season, and we're all gassing him up, So I think there is potential there. I understand the argument for a loan, but I think the consistency overall, if Peru was to be injured and Joseph to come in, I think would develop Joseph's confidence. And I actually think when you look at the personality that he is, he'd take that on. He'd actually enjoy that responsibility. But I think right now, I think Farke knows Peru's his number one, but I think there's still games of which you've seen Joseph start 90, of which, with how the fan base are almost reacting, he shouldn't be anywhere near it, because he's not scoring goals, he's not getting assists. The Preston goal, Farke came out afterwards and said if Joseph wasn't on the pitch, that wouldn't have happened. Said the same thing essentially for Blackburn and Borough with that first goal. But if Joseph's not scoring the goal, and I can understand that, but if Joseph's not scoring the goal, he's the one who's not been good enough. But I think Farke sees it a little bit differently. I think he thinks there's healthy competition there. The problem would be, obviously, with Peru out, that you've just got one striker there. But I think for a player like Mateo Joseph, consistent minutes are needed. So I think there's an argument for keeping him at Leeds United, because I think Peru will be fine throughout the season as well. So if Peru is getting full minutes and bringing Joseph on, I think it's good experience for him. And like Rutter, we will see a better Joseph next season. But I also think there's an argument as well of, if you do let him go out on loan in the system of which this other club would fit, maybe, and the players in that side, maybe that would aid Joseph, if he's playing 90 minutes week in, week out. So there would be potential suitors out there. I'd guarantee if Leeds made him available for loan right now, I think there'd still be 15, 16 clubs in for him. I genuinely believe that. But I understand, there's a pressure on Leeds right now. There's a pressure on Leeds, and there's a pressure on Mateo Joseph. There's a lot of fans who, we, like me included, think there's a necessity to get promoted. We have to get promoted this season with what's going to happen next season with the players coming down. But, I have to say this, and without Ilan Mele between the sticks, in my opinion, Leeds are 6-7 points better off, maybe even more. So we have to bring that into context as well, because people have almost forgotten about that, and it's now the Joseph show. So you've got to weigh up what's best for Joseph and what's best for Leeds United. As I say, on one hand, you're keeping him at Leeds, giving him a chance to grow, develop, and giving him regular minutes. And worst case scenario, Joseph's out. I think with what I saw with pre-season, where Joseph was the main guy, I think he'd be able to take that upon himself. I think he just needs that regularity when it comes to minutes and a consistent left back and right back scenario, of which would aid his game massively. Leeds have been struggling for overlaps. Last night was struggling for overlaps with Byram on the left and Ramazani. When you've got wingers who invert, you need fullbacks to bomb on. Schmidt was doing that. Byram wasn't doing that. So if we're not aiding Joseph, it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. And I think that wing back option has been very consistent throughout the season, with Firpo being injured, Bogle's problems as well on that right hand side. So would Joseph benefit from a loan deal? I think he would, yeah, because I think he'd do well on a loan deal. But would Leeds United benefit from Joseph remaining at Leeds United this season? I genuinely believe we would do. And I think, you know, if it's a post, I mean, he drives through the heart of the pitch, doesn't he? Has a strike, it hits the post. It's a clean strike, hits the post, and you just see him going absolutely nuts because he's like, come on, please, just let a ball go in. So he's desperate to do well. And that's what I find difficult right now. You've got people who just want rid of him, and I'm like, that's it's not really the Leeds way, with sort of technically one of our own, you know, one of our own who's come through that development squad, who always speaks about Leeds so passionately, who's always beating his chest when he scores. You know, the Chelsea game when he scored, I think it was 2 goals, wasn't he? He's going mental. He just has this, he just wants to do well, not just for himself but for Leeds, and you can tell that. And that's why I think I'm a bit disillusioned with maybe some of the rhetoric around him when it's like, get rid of him. He's not good enough, which is fine. It's your opinion. But I've just been surprised with the notion of maybe not sticking by him after sort of what we maybe learned from Jorginho Rutter a little bit. But fair enough. Some people are like, just get rid of him on loan and stuff, and it'll aid his development. I think that's a right conversation to have, by the way. I think there's definitely a conversation there, and a bit of debate to have there. But I just think that you've got to think, would a loan benefit Leeds United and Mateo Joseph right now, or is it better for him staying at Leeds United, coming on subsequently with not that many minutes? And I don't know. I don't know, potentially getting consistent starts if something was to happen to Peru. Maybe. Who knows? But guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Am I way off, or am I on it? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in a bit.